again, I possibly ADHD get bored. So if I'm there for like 20 minutes being stretched out, no matter how good it feels, give me a DS so that I can be doing something else with my hands while you're doing it. I need.
Whilst they're
yeah, no, I'll read a book. Maybe we should try that.
Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome back to the Rubber Room, the place where we talk about all things sexy, shiny, and sinful. I'm Kable, and Jared Leto wishes he looked this good.
And I'm Romeo, and my daddy wears leather.
This week, we're going to be talking about safe kink, and how important it is to make sure that we're being safe when we're being kinky. Word of warning, as always, we'll be talking about a lot of different kinks, some safer than others, and it's really important whenever playing with kink to make sure you stay safe, get consent, and most importantly, have fun. We're back here at the Eagle Bar today. A quick shout out again for letting us host today's episode here. Really appreciate them letting us use the space, because this is really what the Rubber Room is all about. It's about community. It's about sharing all this knowledge with the world around us. So really pleased to be here with the Eagle Bar. Romeo, why don't you kick us off? Tell me what safe kink means to you and why it's important.
Well, it's a big topic. Kink can be, there's dangerous aspects to it for sure, not just in the aspects of just general relationship and dating, like making sure you're with a decent person, make sure you've got consent, all your basics, but then there are lots of kinks that play with danger. We won't be talking too much about some of them because they are massive red flags, very dangerous. But we will be talking around some of the other the more popular but equally dangerous kinks. I quite enjoy a bit of breath play, but that is a very dangerous game to play. And we've all seen, historically, how many gay celebrities have died to autoerotic asphyxiation is a bit of a nightmare. So it's definitely something you shouldn't do alone. And we just want to use this to talk about the fun of it, but also talk about how you've got to make sure you're being safe. Because, fun's no fun when you're dead.
I think it's a really important point. Like, kink is meant to be fun, and I kind of understand it as well from the point of a lot of kinks kind of verge on that risk. It's that excitement. It puts you in situations that maybe you wouldn't normally be in daily life, but also with that comes a risk, whether that is with people that you're meeting with or the kink itself in terms of your safety, your well-being, your health. I think that's why, especially, it made sense for us to talk about this in season 1, before we start going into all these kinks, to really address the fact that there is a way to do kink in a very, very fun way, but it also needs to be in a very safe way, and it needs to be with people that you trust, and people that are going to look after you as well. Because there's a very big difference between having someone who's being dominant and hurting you or abusing you in a fun way versus somebody that is not thinking about your well-being or your safety.
Yeah,
so
definitely one of the main aspects that I struggle with, because I'm quite risk averse generally. I don't meet people very often. I'm very good at maintaining those limits, but I have a tendency of getting lost in the fantasy, and in the fantasy I want to be droned up and hoard out. Like, that's the dream. Obviously not quite feasible in reality without a lot of paperwork and work beforehand. Exactly.
One day.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, bring the sci-fi revolution. I'm down for it. Turn me into a Borg. But that's where I struggle with it, is marrying their intense fantasy with the realistic application of these fantasies. And it can be, like, consent is a very big thing. And while the dream is to be just a hole, I'm also not just going to let any random fuck me. It's a very delicate line to walk, and it does take time and thought to get yourself into that headspace and to make sure you're in the right safe space as well. It can be very complicated.
Yeah, I think that it's really important for you. So just from giving a bit of background, I actually host an event in Manchester, and I've been doing so for a few years alongside several other kinksters, and it's great fun and all of that. And I think being in that position, I've really had exposure to understanding how important it is to look out for other people. I think you never know what people are going to be like until you get to know them, better. And that's the thing, is on nights out, especially when you're in the kink community, you will likely meet a lot of new people, and it's very hard to make an initial split judgment about whether somebody is someone that you can trust, someone that's very safe, and you're able to go to the dark room or go home with them. Even after that as well, just maintaining those friendships. I think it's really important that we as a community are looking out for each other as well, and making sure that we spot when those things are happening and we address them and make sure that people are safe. I mean, there's a lot of people as well that may be hesitant to speak up when they're not feeling comfortable, or when they are experiencing a kink that they're not enjoying. I think that as well is really important as someone else in the community, is to recognize when that's happening. And it's a lot harder, especially when you're in a private setting. Yeah, I think it's really important as a community to make sure that we are maintaining those connections with the people around us, and making sure that we're looking out for them, and spotting bad behavior when it does happen. Because unfortunately, there are some people that aren't going to explore kink in the right way or in a safe way, and we need to make sure we're addressing that.
Yeah, there are always, unfortunately, bad eggs. But it's the duty of the rest of us to make sure the bad eggs aren't ruining anyone else's days, weeks, or lives. And that's why, again, we want to focus on the community, because this is, it is a really good, safe space, but there are malcontents that will ruin it for people if we're not looking after ourselves and each other.
Yeah, I think that the thing as well is, the more that we talk about the importance of safety, the more that it will be showcased in the community as well. And I find that when I'm, as I said, hosting the event, like being very clear on the rules around consent, the rules about making sure that you're checking in on people, what we do on the stage as well. We do demonstrations at the event that I do. And what we always do is check first, what are you into? What are you not into? Is there anywhere that you don't want to be touched? Easy questions to ask. And this isn't just at events. This is when you meet up with people privately as well.
Yeah.
When you start, make sure, even if it's in message before, what are you into? What are you not into? Is there anything off limits? Even asking those simple questions will make sure that you know where you stand. It gives the other person a space to be able to establish what they're okay with. Because when you're in the moment, sometimes it's a bit harder to express that and to be vocal about it. If you're, especially as you said, if you're doing things like breath play or bondage or anything like that, where your movement or your speech is restricted, it is a lot more difficult to say no. And also people might be scared to say no. Yeah. It's very hard to say no. Like, I know I've had experiences in the past where I haven't said no and I've just gone along with it because I didn't want to be that burden or that upset to the other person. I didn't it's never got to a point where it's been so bad, apart from one experience in the dark room. But I think I've been quite lucky, the people that I've experienced kink with, but I know other people have had pretty bad experiences, which has actually put them off kink for ages. I've had a friend who lives in France who had a really bad night out one night with a guy that took him home, and he was really really disrespectful, and the guy no longer does kink for the last 6 months, and he's only just getting back into it now, which is obviously great that he is, but there's some people that will never get back into it because of it.
Yeah, it's the problem we've got, like, across the board, like, is that people will take advantage where they think they can, and will prioritize themselves over, and when it comes to dom sub dynamics, it can be very, very tricky. But like Kable said, it's a lot of admin beforehand, but it's very important to know where you are, what you want, what he wants, what they want, whatever. And I often find, like, you kind of get that out of the way, because I'd be talking to people on Instagram. That's where I do most of my kink flirting, and you end up talking about what you're into long before you even meet. So by the time you actually meet these people, you tend to have a good idea of what you've got, because you've already built that connection and that relationship. Even if it's just online, you do kind of have to have a read of each other. It's different on a night where you're just, like, vibing with someone across a room.
Yeah.
But it is important, unless you're just having a cheeky fumble. But once things start getting a little bit more intensive and extreme, you need to be exceptionally clear on what you're about, because better to not start something than to start it and then it go too far.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and don't worry about offending the other person, because there'll be someone else they can. If it don't work with you, there'll be someone else.
And I think this is such a big thing, is I think we're sometimes so worried in our heads, like, oh, what will the other person think? Most people will be like, Of course, yeah, like no problem whatsoever. And most people that I know into kink, if I said I didn't like something, they'd be like, "Of course, no," because as a community, we're very open-minded. We're very aware as to the fact that everybody has different kinks. Everyone's into different things. So I think just being comfortable to speak up, and I know it's tricky, and I've struggled in the past, but I'm in a place now where I'm very clear on my limits, clear on my boundaries. As somebody who's a dom a lot of the time as well, I'm very, very conscious about making sure that I'm constantly talking to the other person. Even if it's at the end of a session when you're just like, how did you find it? What did you like? Like, what was really enjoyable? You could obviously tell from body language and facial expressions as well during it. But I think that's kind of the other thing as well that's really important, is always maintaining some kind of awareness. If you're a dom in that situation, you should always have your eye on their face or their hands, because usually those are the big tells if someone isn't enjoying it. Yeah. If they start to squirm in a way that isn't enjoyable, that's when you know that actually you need to maybe take a step back. Yeah. And especially for some of those more extreme kinks, as you said, like breath play, I think it's really important to make sure that if you're doing that, it's with somebody that you trust and you've played with before you get into that, because they need to know what your limits are before anything like that happens.
Yeah, there is a lot of responsibility with being a dom.
Yeah.
Because you are putting your sub in situations that they can't get out of without your help. There is obviously both equally responsible for everything going into it, but when you're in the play, the dom is in control and is the one getting you out of it if you need to. So it's not something to take on lightly, and it's something to talk about beforehand. And because the last thing you want is to have a sub freaking out in your care and then them, like you say, not getting into kink for however many years.
I think that would break me if that ever happened. Yeah. If a person ever walked away from a session with me and was like, I'm never doing it again, I think that would be so upsetting. And I think that's the thing for me. I want to ensure they have the best experience, because it's such a great community to become a part of. Yeah. So I think the thing we haven't really touched on is some of the more extreme kinks, because I'm, as I've said in the last episode, I'm into fisting. I'm also into things like e-stim as well. And I think there are some kinks out there beyond breath play that are very on the verge of being unsafe if they're done in the wrong way. I think fisting is a big one. Putting your entire hand inside someone is probably not the most natural thing that is sort of suggested. It feels incredible. And I will tell you that, like, I've had it giving and receiving, and it is amazing, which is why I love it. But if you're going to do that, it's got to be with somebody that has done it before, that is experienced, because it takes time to stretch somebody out properly, make sure you're massaging them. Your hole is not going to naturally just open up unless you're very talently gifted, which I have some friends who are, and I'm very amazed. But especially for someone like me, that I was not a natural bottom until I was like 20. And it's taken me time to get there. It takes time and it takes care from somebody who's really going to.
It's about not rushing into stuff. Yeah. I personally am terrible for maintaining my hole. I don't have sex that often, and I occasionally pop a plug in, but it's not very often. So while fisting is something I'm interested in doing, it feels 1,000 miles away from where I am, and it's not something I'm gonna jump on immediately. You know, it's something that I'd want to build a solid connection with someone first. That's me personally. I am quite connection based. I can't just, I mean, I'll have a snog and a grope of a stranger in a club, but I need to know that there's more than that.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a bit of conversation and a bit of banter, so you know there's a bit of spark. I just need to know there's something there. And then, again, I, possibly ADHD, get bored. So if I'm there for like 20 minutes being stretched out, no matter how good it feels, give me a DS so that I can be doing something else with my hands while you're doing it. You know, I need.
Whilst they're going.
Yeah, no, I'll read a book. You know, maybe we should try that. That's why I like bondage and stuff, because it does remove my ability to get distracted. Yeah. It sort of forces me.
I'm fully just imagining you just in and out, and it's like, is it in yet? And you're there, just like, wait a sec, I'm almost at the end of the chapter.
Greek myths, it's very important.
I love it. There's also, you've also touched on though the point about the mental side of it, the mental headspace. Because we talk about the physical safety, but also if you're experiencing these kinks, some of them can be very scary and to the point of potentially traumatic if it is done wrong.
Yeah.
Like I know people that have seriously damaged their holes, which doing things like fisting, which obviously is from a health perspective not good, but also that really will have an impact on you for a long time. And obviously we talked about the point of consent as well. If things are happening without your consent, going into the lines of rape, I think it's really important to make sure that we are calling that for what it is, and also recognizing the impact that it will have on people.
Yeah, that's the thing. People, we like to believe we're the main character and so on about in our lives, but everything we do affects someone, and these intimate, extreme moments can damage people for years. But it is very much you've got to do the work, and you've got to make sure you're doing it properly.
It can be the make or break, really, of a lot of people. I know people that have come to nights in Manchester in the scene, and I've obviously said hello, and really nice to see new faces. That's what I love about hosting an event, is you meet so many new people. But then I also know some people, the odd person that unfortunately has gone home with the wrong person, and then they message them the next day, they had a bad night and they don't want to come back. And you can try and encourage them to actually say that's a very one-off, and there is a whole community here of lovely people. But sometimes it is the
and
make
they
or
also
break.
need space. Like they don't need to come back next week. You know, if you need a break, take a break. If you need to recuperate, do it. Whatever that is, mental, physically, make sure you're doing it. Other activities other than breast play that we won't be talking about because they are we won't be giving any advice on it because of how dangerous they can be. There's like blood play, there's knives, people like gun play and fear play. We're not in a position to give any info out on that. I'm sure there are journals and stuff online where you can find out about that stuff, and if you are experimenting with that, just make sure you're doing it safely and with people that you trust. It's not something I could recommend because I have no idea anything about it. There are kinks out there that won't be for you, and if someone's trying to pressure you into it, you can say no.
Yeah.
Always say no. I'm very happy. I love saying no. It's a very powerful word. It's my default most of the time.
It's a great word to have.
Yeah, so especially newbies who don't want to lose their experience, like they might think, oh God, this is my first chance, I don't want to blow it. I'll just say yes. Don't say yes. Easy breezy. Like, go with the flow, but don't go somewhere you don't want to go.
And I really want to stress on this podcast that this is the space of no kink shaming. I fully accept and respect and support all kinks. I feel like I have explored the entire rainbow of kink, which is very exciting. I've done things like ABDL, I've done gunge play, I've done water sports, I've done all of this. So I feel like I have a good awareness about everything. Not saying that everything is for me, and that's completely fine. I think that some of the more extreme ones, you really have to be with somebody that is trained, is experienced. Make sure that you know what their experience is, and you don't just sort of take it at face value, because if you go up to someone and say, are you into fisting? And they say, yeah. You need to know. Yeah, you need to know. And I think
I love watching it
that's
online.
The benefit of having this community is we can ask other people and say, how do you know this person? What are they like? Have you had experiences with them? And I think that's how I've kind of learned a lot about people around the community too, is just from hearing from other people about them. And I think that's been really useful.
That's why I do like the tight-knit community, because like if there's a bad egg, everyone knows, and everyone will you get warned off them. Another dangerous play that we won't be talking about is drug play. It can be quite a big thing. I believe it's useful for fisting. Sometimes it feels like everyone's on them. Sometimes it feels like no one's on them. It can depend who you're with and where you are. But you've just got to be clear on your boundaries. And that's across the board a good rule for life. But you can feel, especially if you're like small town gay and it's your first time out in the rubber city, you might want to jump in feet first and get right into it, but you've got to make sure you're looking after yourself, because there's no guarantee that anyone else will be looking out for you. It might be, it's a good community, but there's no guarantee. You've got to make sure that everything you're doing is something you want to be doing. It
all comes back to boundaries, as you said. I think this is what we're really saying here, is about establishing those boundaries. I think the final thing that we could probably finish on, and we haven't talked about, is also fin doming and fin subbing.
Yeah. This is an episode all on its own, really.
Yeah, and there's more to talk about there. Again, it's something I have experienced with people that I trust, with people that I know very well, and I can see the benefit of it. I can see the excitement of it as well. So I am fully supportive of fin doming if it's with somebody that you have known for a long time, and you have made several rules in the first place. You need to figure out how much money you are able to spend and how much is a safe amount to spend. You need to be figuring out how they're going to be accessing that money as well, because there's different ways people might do it in terms of cash or card or direct bank transfers. So I think it's really important to be establishing all these details before any play happens. And you also need to make sure that you're regularly connecting to make sure that it is okay and you're not pressuring anybody into doing it too much, because that's when it starts to affect people's livelihood. I would always suggest with Findom, if it is something you want to try, very small amounts to begin with, and it's something done very lightly, because it can escalate quickly. And again, really be clear on your boundaries, your limits, and make sure that we aren't pressuring people into giving people money.
It's meant to be fun, so you've got to be aware that whatever you do, like especially with Findom and Finsoap, to me it feels like the most obviously exploitative kink if it's done poorly, and like you can affect someone's livelihood. Or you can affect, if you take all their money off them, what are they going to do? And that's the fun of it, but it's a dangerous game. And again, it's consent, it's clear boundaries, it's trust. And again, that's just good rules for life, as usual. But it's just, you've got to be certain that you're in it with the right person. And yeah, sometimes you won't be, which is a shame, but that's life. You just got to cut ties and try again.
And if you're watching right now and you just want to know somebody that you can trust, then I'd hope you can come to me or Romeo. I think that's why we're here. It's very much here to give advice, here to help.
We will be your gurus.
Yes, so that's the point. And obviously it's that question of, well, who is the right person and all of that. And the thing is, you don't know. You won't know until you get to know somebody. But at least you've got two kinky friends here. So
for sure. So that feels like a good place to wrap up this episode. We are on the socials. I am Rubber Romeo on Instagram and other places.
I am Rubber Kable, so make sure to give me a follow.
Aye. And then the pod is Rubber Room Media on Instagram and Rubber Room Media on TikTok, I believe. I made that last night. And then the email is rubberroommedia.info@gmail.com. So we're looking for stories, we're looking for questions, we're looking for any topics you'd like us to talk about, we're looking for folk you'd like to see on here if you've got kinksters. And something to say as well, we're not just for the gays. We want to try and get some straight rubber men on here. Oh, yeah. Not just to stare at them, but to ask them questions. We might even get some women on. Who knows?
Oh, for sure. No, we need to. This space needs to be for every single kinkster out there.
And some NBs and pups and... Yeah. ABDL is something I'm very naive about and that doesn't interest me at all. So it'd be very interesting to get someone's perspective on that as well. So please, we want to get people in. We want to get you involved. Talk to us. We're here.
Well, that's it for today. Glad you could join us again for another episode, and we will see you on the flip side.
Later, Gators.